What if the only way to end war is to become the very monster you swore to destroy? Attack on Titan doesn't ask us for answers. It demands we sit with the hardest questions about freedom, revenge, sacrifice, and the brutal truth behind peace. Today, we're diving into one of the most philosophically charged anime of all time, Attack on Titan. It's more than just titans and epic fights. At its heart, it's about the cost of war and what happens when a generation inherits hatred that isn't theirs. Set in a world where people live behind giant walls to protect themselves from man-eating titans, the show slowly unravels its true enemy. Not just titans, but the deeply rooted ideologies of fear, nationalism, and generational trauma. Attack on Titan teaches us a lot about the philosophy of war through the eyes of Eren, Armen, and others. There are the cycles of violence, moral ambiguity, and the haunting power of choice. But we'll also ask a deeper question. Is peace possible without understanding our own capacity for violence? Think about that one scene. Eren standing on the shores of Mali, looking out across the sea. It's the end of Season 3. The scouts have made it past the walls. Beyond that ocean they thought was freedom. But Eren's face says it all. If we kill everyone across the sea, will we finally be free? That's not a victory, that's dread. Eren realizes that even after all the suffering, there's more war waiting, more enemies. And now, he has to decide. Keep the cycle going, or break it by force. This moment captures something ancient and universal. The idea that violence promises resolution, but often delivers only more blood. Eren isn't hopeful. He's tired. And when you're tired of war, but also convinced that peace is a lie, what choice do you have left? Now, arguably, one of the most controversial and defining moments in the entire series, the rumbling. Eren unleashes a global genocide, not because he wants to, but because he sees no other way. He's tired of cycles. He's tired of watching his friends die. He thinks maybe, if he bears the weight of being the villain, the world can reset. It's a horrifying moral question. Is it worse to passively let your people die, or actively become a murderer to save them? This taps into consequentialist thinking, the belief that the ends justify the means. But Attack on Titan doesn't glorify this logic. It shows its human cost. The screaming, the rubble, the children, the friends who turn against you, the loneliness. To some, Eren is a genocidal maniac. To others, he's a tragic hero who sacrifices his own humanity. And that's where the story refuses to give us easy answers. I'll destroy the world if that means my friends can live free. Eren's actions don't exist in a vacuum. They're the product of years of systemic abuse, propaganda, and dehumanization. His transformation is slow, painful, and disturbingly understandable. What's haunting is how familiar it all feels. Because real-world history has shown us how ordinary people, given extraordinary burdens, can justify the most unthinkable acts. That's what makes Eren's story so powerful. It forces us to recognize the potential for darkness in ourselves. And that's what makes Armen so important. Where Eren becomes the sword, Armen becomes the voice. He chooses diplomacy, understanding, empathy, even as the world burns. Think of the scene where Armen confronts the remnants of Mali with open hands, not weapons. He believes that peace is still possible, that humanity is not beyond saving. In a world where trauma breeds revenge, Armen chooses something radical. Patience, dialogue, trust. It's not weakness, it's courage. And in many ways, Armen is the true opposite of Eren. He's what Eren might have been in another life, a life without the burden of violence. There's a quiet, haunting shot where Armen kneels beside a child who was caught in the crossfire of the war. Smoke fills the air. The sky is grey. He just stares, not in anger, but in sorrow. That single image reminds us, no matter how justified a war might seem, the innocent always pay the price. But there's something even more difficult to accept. Every side believes they're fighting for the right reasons. It's what makes Attack on Titan so uncomfortable and so human. There are no villains in the traditional sense, just people. People with memories, with losses, with fears so deep they're willing to kill just to feel safe again. When you look at Gabi, when you hear Rena's guilt, when you watch Zeke's twisted logic, you see reflections of us, of the stories we've been told, and of the stories we choose to believe. War, at its core, is not just about politics or territory. It's about identity, fear, a refusal to see the other side as human. And if that's true, then war isn't just a tragedy. It's a failure of imagination, a failure of empathy. Attack on Titan doesn't just show us what war costs, it shows us how easily it begins, in silence, in hate, in the inherited weight of history. And it begs the question, what would it take to stop it before it starts? Because maybe the real battlefield isn't out there. Maybe it's inside each of us. Attack on Titan reveals how ideology shapes perception. Reiner's story, and Gabi's and Zeke's, show us how people on opposite sides of war can believe they're both fighting for peace. It's a mirror, not a message. One that shows us how propaganda can poison empathy. And maybe that's the real tragedy. War doesn't just kill bodies, it kills understanding. Miyamoto Musashi said it best. For those who don't know, this is the legendary samurai and author of The Book of Five Rings, a book I highly recommend everyone to read. Musashi said, "To win any battle, you must fight the enemy within." That fits Attack on Titan perfectly. Eren, Armen, Reiner, Zeke, all of them are fighting inner wars. Guilt, fear, doubt, loyalty. None of them are purely good or evil. They are reflections of a world that teaches violence as the only language. But Musashi's wisdom is clear. Real strength is about mastering the self, not just defeating the other. We can also take a step even further back, to Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche wrote about the idea of the eternal recurrence, the belief that all events will repeat themselves infinitely unless something within us changes. For Nietzsche, this wasn't just a cosmic concept, it was a challenge, to live and act in such a way that you would be willing to repeat your life over and over. In a way, this fits Eren's conflict perfectly. He sees the cycle of violence, hate, history, and asks, what if I break it? What if I carry the entire burden so no one else has to? But Nietzsche might have asked, is that true strength or just a different kind of surrender? Eren's will to power, a core Nietzschean concept, isn't about domination. It's about creating meaning where there is none. Eren doesn't just react to the world, he reshapes it, even if it destroys him. This is the deeper tragedy of Attack on Titan. Even when you win, you lose something of yourself. And in the end, it raises a question not just for these characters, but for us. So, what does Attack on Titan teach us about war? That it's never just about nations, or titans, or land. It's about the stories we inherit and the choices we make. War begins in the heart, and maybe peace does too. You are free. What does this teach you about choice? Would you choose to carry hatred forward or break the cycle, even if it costs everything?